Part 2 of session 62. We have a lot to talk today. We have prophecies, we have wonders, we have harvest, we even have initiation process. Let's begin. In the last video, we covered up to the point where the conversation went a little controversial in the personal material that was excluded from the original books, speaking about the possibilities of war and guerrilla warfare and all of that. And I left a question about prophecies, which is what follows now for this video. Like I said, we have a lot to cover today, different topics, and I don't have anything to carry over from last video other than that was the conversation that was unfolding about prophecies and the earth changes and everything that's going to expand a little bit more here. I think Don got the idea that it was a little transient of information to talk about war and all of that, so he went to the next question, which is the one I'm going to cover today to start the video. And let's go straight into it because, like I said, for the third time, we have a lot today. So, question 9, and coming from that controversial question about the possibilities of war and catalysts and all of that, Don says, we would seem to have dual catalysts operating, and the question is which one is going to act first. The prophecies, I will call them, made by Edgar Cayce indicated many earth changes, and I am wondering about the mechanics of describing what we call the future. Ra, it has been stated, is not part of time, and yet we concern ourselves with probability-possibility vortices. It is very difficult for me to understand how the mechanism of prophecy operates. What is the value of a prophecy such as Cayce made with respect to earth changes, with respect to all of these scenarios? So Ra says, consider the shopper entering the store to purchase food with which to furnish the table for the time period you call a week. Some stores have some items, others a variant set of offerings. We speak of these possibility-probability vortices when asked with the understanding that such are as a can, jar, or portion of goods in your store. It is unknown to us as we scan your time-space whether your peoples will shop hither or yon. We can only name some of the items available for the choosing. The, shall we say, record which the one you call Edgar read from is useful in that same manner. There is less knowledge in this material of other possibility-probability vortices and more attention paid to the strongest vortex. I am of a mind to keep reading and then analyze all of this, but I'm going to make a pause here first. So let's give a little bit of an introduction to the mechanics of prophecy and what Ra is referring to here, which I'm actually grateful that they went with a very soft and relatable analogy like the food store, because this is how the universe operates. People sometime at the beginning of understanding metaphysics and divinity and spirituality and all of that is the realm of the mystic. They think initially, and it's a very natural assumption, that predictions are set things that are going to happen, you see, and that is not true, because things are not set to happen, except certain things which are of universal clock or nature in general, seasons, day and night, and so on. All of these things are obviously set in place. There are laws, if you will, just like physical laws are just there, but not predictions of directions of consciousness. Let's put it that way, because that's the real thrill of this creation, that there is no certainty of anything other than what I said already, laws and physics. And with laws and physics, I also refer to metaphysics, not just our materialist science. So, what are we talking about? Prophecies. Prophecies are readings of the possibilities that are in the future. And this is why Ra uses the slash of possibility probability, because certain possibilities are more probable. And so when they and Edgar Cayce, I believe there's two different views of these vortices. Like Edgar Cayce was looking at they're both obviously looking at time-space, but Edgar Cayce was looking at the specific planets, time-space, and these inner planes, right? And these vortices are simply the possibilities of things happening. I believe it was a lot more accurate with people somehow, because I would think this is more specific and easier to read, I would think. But when it came to the world itself, it was a little bit inaccurate. So this is just my speculation based on the little knowledge that I have on Edgar Cayce's prophecies. Yet that's what we're dealing. We're dealing with possibilities, and very strong possibilities sometimes, and others that are not so possible. So Ra's using the analogy of the store because, yeah, we have different stores and they have different items, and what we can read is the possibility of somebody buying, say, meat or dairy, depending on the possibilities that are there, and cereal, as they would say. But this, they cannot tell. Maybe I'm going to add this dimension here, which is, consider when you go to the grocery store, you always buy the same stuff. You're conditioned to do that. So when somebody knows you, they would say, well, the possibility of them buying cereal or a six-pack or meat or dairy or whatever it is, chips, vegetables, certain vegetables or fruits, the possibilities are huge, but nobody can predict exactly that you're going to buy that. There are just strong vortices there. And we are able to read this in time-space, of course, because guess what? We're all actually made of time-space. Space-time is just a manifestation of that time-space, so it's much more accurate to read that. So let me continue reading, because Ra has more to say. And this is what Edgar Cayce was reading, these vortices. Ra continues and says, we see the same vortex, but also see many others. Edgar's material could be likened unto 100 boxes of your cold cereal, another vortex likened unto 3 or 6 or 50 of another product which is eaten by your peoples for breakfast. That your breakfast is close to certain, the menu is your own choosing. Just like I said. Ra says, the value of prophecy must be realized to be only that of expressing possibilities. Moreover, it must be, in our humble opinion, carefully taken into consideration that any time-space viewing, whether by one of your time-space or by one such as we who view the time-space for a dimension, shall we say, exterior to it, will have a quite difficult time expressing time measurement values. Thus, prophecy given in specific terms is more interesting for the content or type of possibility predicted than for the space-time nexus of its supposed occurrence. So, this is packed. So, let's go little by little. The value of prophecy must be realized to be only that of expressing possibilities. I think I hammered that point already enough, that the value of prophecy is simply the one to express the possibilities. So if I'm able to read you and say, okay, you're going to the grocery store, and I know that you like bok choy and wine and rice and Vinegar, well, vinegar is something that we all buy, I think. You should. Vinegar is great for everything, not just for eating. So I will predict that you're going to buy those things, right? I can predict what Julie's going to buy because I go with her all the time and I just know what she shops for. And even if the possibilities are huge, there are many possibilities, but the probabilities of it are very strong. So you can only see that, but it's not about, oh, he was able to predict it, and oh, this is possible to predict everything. So that's just how I see it. I think the value of prophecy is that which is the capacity of somebody to be able to predict or to see the possibilities of that happening. I think I'm sounding redundant already. So Ra continues and says, moreover, it must be, in our humble opinion, carefully taken into consideration that any time-space viewing, whether that be of one of us in our time-space or by them who are in a different dimension, that's what they say, out of the planet, anybody predicting the future will have very difficult times expressing time measurements, because it is almost nearly impossible to know when somebody's going to make a decision. We can see, we can measure, if we're capable, of course, not me, but anybody who has this ability, whether it be Ra in sixth density or your local seer who has access to time space, and you be the judge of that. Anybody who sees through this dimension of possibilities and probability vortices, it's impossible almost to say, well, this person's going to make this decision, and so it's going to happen at this time. So this is why Orion, being the mischievous entities that they are in our neighborhood, they just like to give specific prophecies, because that's exactly what destroys the credibility of somebody. And this has happened to even people who are not seers or anything like that, but they just like to talk about the possibilities in governmental actions and things like that. And they claim that they have, all the knowledge and so on. And unfortunately for them and for the people who follow them, this becomes a disappointment. And credibility, although they may have excellent material to share, credibility goes down, because guess what? If you try to predict the future, most likely you're going to fail. In specific times, that is. So, Ra finishes and says, thus prophecy given in specific terms is more interesting for the content. This is mirroring the first sentence when they say, the value of prophecy must be realized to be only that of expressing possibilities, the ability to be able to see possibilities. Me being able to see the possibilities of Julie buying something in the grocery store. And then they mirror it at the end saying, prophecy given in specific terms is not about the time, but about the content. Because anybody who can actually, unless they're a charlatan, they would say, I think, the financial system is going to collapse in 2024. And so it is more important, take the date out, forget about the date, and concentrate actually on the reading of the financial system collapsing in 2024. Now, I just pulled this out of my ass, so don't believe that I read this somewhere. I'm just saying it. And hopefully I'm not accurate with that. So the financial system, say it collapses, and that's my reading. Forget about the time. It's about my prediction of saying that the financial system, I'm reading that the financial system, I don't need to be a seer for that. I think anybody could see already. The veil is thinning, so everybody can see through the veil already that the financial system is collapsing. So yeah, it's much more about the content or type of possibility predicted than for the space-time nexus of its supposed occurrence. I don't know if space-time is correct here. I think there is a note. No, there is no note here. No, maybe it is space-time. Okay. So that is the value of predictions. Do you like that? I don't know. Some people like to have dates. When am I going to finally meet that beautiful blueprints of my life? When am I going to finally hit lottery? When am I going to, whatever, meet God? I want to know. Sorry, not possible. You're the one who chooses. So, you're the one who buys the cold cereal. Let's go to question 10. Where Don says, so we have the distinct possibility of two different types of catalysts creating an atmosphere of seeking that is greater than that which we experience at present. There will be much confusion, especially in the scenario of Earth changes, simply because there have been many predictions of these changes by many groups, given various and sundry reasons for the changes. Can you comment on the effectiveness of this type of catalyst and the rather wide pre-knowledge of the coming changes, but also the rather wide variation in, shall I say, explanation for these changes? Ra says, given the amount of strength of the possibility-probability vortex, which posits the expression by the planet itself of the difficulty birthing of the planetary self into fourth density, it would be greatly surprising were not many which have some access to space-time able to perceive this vortex. The amount of this cold cereal in the grocery, to use our previous analogy, is disproportionately large. Each which prophesies does so from a unique level, position, or vibratory configuration. Thus biases and distortions will accompany much prophecy. So, given that we're going through all of this, right? We're going through, what does Don say? Distinct possibility of two different types of catalysts creating an atmosphere of seeking. I believe he's referring to the Earth changes plus the conscious shift. I think I may be off there. I don't know what he meant. Two different types of catalysts that is greater in which we experience, then a lot of confusion will happen. And this is because, yeah, a lot of people are going to be predicting now that they're seeing what's happening. A lot of people are going to predict from different angles, right? And so Ra actually admits and says, you know, given the current stress of the planet transition into fourth density, given that stress that is happening, then yes, it would be surprising if a lot of people actually don't have access to the asterisk. There is because space-time is supposed to be time-space. I don't know if they corrected this, probably not. But yeah, they definitely meant time-space. That's my opinion too, and people from NLL Research and others believe so. So it's a good correction. So yeah, it would be surprising if a lot of people don't have access to this time-space view of the possibility-probability vortices, and they go to use their analogy again of the cold cereal in the grocery. The amount of this is very large. So there is a lot of brands. There is one brand that is taking over, and you know the possibility of people buying this brand is huge. So the thing is that every person who prophesies does it from a whole unique level or position or vibratory configuration. All of these are important. Level is definitely, I know we don't like the word level and position in all of this, but say Edgar Cayce was on a much different level than, you know, the lady who read my hand nobody actually read my hand, but the lady that read the hand, in my town, Edgar Casey was at a whole different level of access to time-space. And so depending on the level, position, or the vibratory configuration of the entity, of course, this is going to change. And the biases and distortions will accompany much prophecy. This is why I actually, there are several reasons I don't care for prophecy. They're interesting because, like I said, Ross said, this is about the content of it. And the content is always interesting. So, yeah, there's something to be said about prophecies. But certainly not the deterministic prophecy that says this is going to happen. One thing that is inevitable for it to happen, I believe, eventually, I think much transition is needed, speaking of financial system and cultural dissolution and all of this, is that for a third density planet to move into fourth density, and I'm going to say this completely, with complete certainty, this is not even a prophecy. This is just saying the sun will come back again after nightfall. I mean, it's just going to happen. But the things that are going to definitely disappear from our planet is a financial system, because we no longer can create value for the things that everybody shares. Nobody owns anything. This is not the New World Order proposing you will own nothing and be super happy because we will own everything. It's you the people won't. There won't be any hierarchy. There won't be any elite. All of that needs to disappear in a positive planet. And this is the video in which you want to stay until the end to see why this is a positive planet. So stick with me, please. Okay, so the financial system is going to transition. It's going to go through its different metamorphoses before it goes into nothing. No more financial system, no more division, no more ownership, no more, borders between, imaginary borders, lines that exist for us to say foreigner, patriot, whatever. All of this is going to disappear. Our cultural divisions, of course, language will become unified, all of this. But not because somebody determines it, but because everybody wants it. I mean, everybody, not just one person that decides it. Everybody will resonate on the same level. So it's not something imposed by anybody. It's not the fear. You see, the negatives always like to distort things. And they say, oh, look, all of them are acting as if they're one. So let's make the illusion that they're one by doing this. They will always try to manipulate that which we think, our collective consciousness. That's what they do. And so the smart thing to do as developing entities into fourth density is to just look and see, oh, that's the man behind the curtain. Haha, I see you. No, thank you. I won't cooperate with that. I do not wish, unless you want to cooperate, of course. But once you spot the guy that is manipulating you, I don't know. You may not want to cooperate anymore. But again, that's just my 2 cents. So let's move on, shall we? Question 11, Don says, well, this entire scenario over the next, shall I say, 20 years seems to be aimed at producing an increase in seeking and an increase in the awareness of the natural creation, but also a terrific amount of confusion. What is the pre-incarnative objective of many of the wanderers to attempt to reduce this confusion? It's a great question. Ross says, it was the aim of wanderers to serve the entities of this planet in whatever way was requested. And it was also the aim of wanderers that their vibratory patterns might lighten the planetary vibration as a whole, thus ameliorating the effects of planetary disharmony and palliating any results of this disharmony. Specific intentions such as aiding in a situation not yet manifest are not the aim of wanderers. Light and love go where they are sought and needed, and their direction is not planned aforetimes. That's a great answer to put in context wanderers again. It aims at answer the specific question of Don, where he says, what is the pre-incarnative objective of many of the wanderers to attempt to reduce the confusion? You see, wanderers didn't say, we come here to offer, the solution to your confusion. Because wanderers do not do that. They just come here to say, how can I be of service? You see, you don't know. When you ask the question, say, you go to your friend's house and they're moving stuff and you say, how can I be of service? You didn't go there to say, how can I be of service in moving that? That's my intention. No, you don't know. You say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Or, if you work at a store and somebody comes in and you say, how can I be of service? How can I help you? You don't say, how can I take you to the electronics section and sell you something? You don't, unless you're one of those sellers. And I often associate sellers with negative entities, because some of them manipulate, but not always. There's always a distinction there. There are some who actually sell from their heart. But anyhow, I can digress. So, the objective of the wanderers is not that. Ra says, it was the aim of the wanderers to serve the entities of this planet in whatever way was requested. They come here and they say, whatever it is. It was also the aim of wanderers that their vibratory patterns might lighten the planetary vibration. This is something that we have discussed in the past about how wanderers, just by coming in here, having their own unique vibration, just their sense of being. Such a beauty in wanderers. I mean, when you look at them, you just say, this is, you're so beautiful. You just see them, how they're naturally so vibrant, and even if they don't know it, even if they don't know who they are, you can just tell, when somebody, especially those who suffer a lot, they're so beautiful. All of you, so beautiful. So that's the whole purpose, just to come here and lighten the planetary vibration just by being here. What a beautiful service, it really is. And so, yes, this will ameliorate the effects of the planetary disharmony and palliate any results of this disharmony. So whatever the effects of the disharmony that is naturally happening on Earth, they would palliate. Palliate means to just lessen or reduce. Comes from pale, actually, the same root of pale. When something pales, it reduces, diluted. Specific intentions such as aiding in a situation not yet manifest are not the aim of the wanderers. I covered that already. Light and love go where they're sought and needed, and their direction is not planned aforetimes. The direction of light love. Don says in question 12, then each of the wanderers here acts as a function of the biases he has developed in any way he sees fit to communicate, or simply be in his polarity, to aid the total consciousness of the planet. That's a great way of putting it, yes. Is there any, shall I say, more physical way that he aids in? What I mean is, do his vibrations somehow add to the process? Just as electrical polarity or charging a battery or something. Does that also aid the planet? Just the physical presence of the wanderers? Yes, yes, yes. Ra says this is correct, and the mechanism is precisely as you state. We intended this meaning in the second portion of our previous answer. So, just again to reiterate what I said, and Ra said in the second portion of their answer. Let's see what they said. Entities and planet, whatever was requested, and also the aim of the second part. See, they said first, tell me what to do and I'll do it. That's the first thing the wanderers came here to do. And on the other hand, they also came to the aim of wanderers that their vibratory patterns might lighten the planetary vibration as a whole, ameliorating and palliating the effects of disharmony. Just by their sheer presence. Nothing else. Just be here. And if you can be happy, If you can be happy with your life, Wanderer, you will exponentially radiate light. So, is it too much to ask you to be happy? Just smile and share that smile with somebody. Do it today. I don't know where you're at. If you're listening to this on a podcast or on YouTube, somebody's walking by, just say, hey, smile. Maybe don't say hey, they'll probably feel awkward. But just smile to people. You would see the difference in their faces. You can see, you're like a magician when you smile to people. People just like say, oh, somebody is shining love light to me, even if they don't know what love light is. That's what you do. Just smile to people. Smile to yourself in the mirror. I don't often do that. I don't know why. I do smile a lot here in camera. So, that was the purpose. Actually, Ra had more to say. I thought that was a short answer, because it seemed like a short... Oh no, Ra has more to say. Let's go read what Ra has to say. Question 12. You may at this time note that, as with any entities, each wanderer has its unique abilities, biases, and specialties, so that from each portion of each density represented among the wanderers comes an array of pre-incarnative talents, which then may be expressed upon this plane, which you now experience. So that each wanderer, in offering itself before incarnation, has some special service to offer, in addition to the doubling effect of planetary love and light, and the basic function of serving as beacon or shepherd. Yes, okay, yeah, how could I forget this? Of course, Don is also asking in his question if they do something else physically. Does that also just a physical presence? He said something like that. What I mean is, do the vibrations somehow add to the process? Maybe. Yeah, more physical way. Is there something? Yeah, so Don was asking, like, what else? What else would they do? And so this is something we know already. Each wanderer, I'm just going to summarize everything that Ra said here. In addition has, yes, okay. So every wanderer has a specific talent, and that's covered in the next paragraph. Let's go read it. Then I'll finish this up. Ra says, thus there are those of 5th density whose abilities to express wisdom are great. There are 4th and 6th density wanderers whose ability to serve as, shall we say, passive radiators or broadcasters of love and love light are immense. There are many others whose talents brought into this density are quite varied. Thus wanderers have 3 basic functions. Once the forgetting is penetrated, the first 2 being basic, the tertiary one being unique to that particular mind-body-spirit complex. Okay, so now I can make a pause. I'm just excited to start talking about this. Every wanderer has a unique specialty. 4th and 6th density, radiate love. 5th density, wisdom, great wisdom to be shared. And so, passive radiators, I love that. This is what I was talking about. All of you. It doesn't matter if you think you're from 5th density. You can all smile and give that to people. In fact, if you're from 5th density, then you're learning this too from 6th density. Thus wanderers have 3 basic functions. This is what I want to cover once the forgetting is penetrated. The first one is the passive radiation of love, just by being here. Then the service to others, which is simply, how can I be of service? And that is, how can I give you love and light and wisdom as you desire? And the tertiary being the unique of that particular mind-body-spirit complex. Ra has said that some people heal, others teach, and others are more of a sacramental nature, I think it is. So these are the 3 basic things, that we do. We heal, and there are many ways of healing. We're not talking about just healing physical ailments and stuff. Just the mind. If you can heal the mind of somebody, whew, that's a huge one, because you're attacking both things. And so this is an inner plane healing. So everybody can heal, actually. That's the prerequisite, actually, to be of any other density, right? If you're from 5th density, then you have 4 density healing in you. If you're from 6th density, then you have all of that, and you're balancing both. And teaching is, it's a beautiful thing. I love it particularly. And so there is that particular thing that we all do. So we move to the last part of this answer, where Ra says, we may note at this point, while you ponder the possibility-probability vortices, that although you have many items which cause distress and thus offer seeking and service opportunities, there is always one container in that store of peace, love, light, and joy. This vortex may be very small, but to turn one's back upon it is to forget the infinite possibilities of the present moment. Could your planet polarize towards harmony in one fine, strong moment of inspiration? Yes, my friends. It is not probable, but it is ever possible. Beautiful words of Ra, not forgetting that there is always one possibility, one small item hidden somewhere in the planetary grocery store of decision making as human consciousness. That item, my friends, is to polarize strongly into the positive and finally make the shift. So, is it probable? Not very much, not very likely, but it is ever possible, and we should never turn our backs to that. That's just very, perfect. That's what it is. It's perfect. It's a perfect, perfect note from Ra. So, thank you, Ra, for always stating that there is that possibility at all times. So, can we do that? Yes. Will we do it? Unlikely, but still, it's possible. Now that we're looking at vortices of possibilities and probabilities. So, we move to question 13. Don says, how common in the universe is a mixed harvest for a planet of both positively and negatively oriented mind-body-spirit complexes? Now we're going into harvest. Ra says, among planetary harvests which yield a harvest of mind-body-spirit complexes, approximately 10% are negative, approximately 60% are positive, and approximately 30% are mixed, with nearly all harvests being positive. In the event of mixed harvest, it is almost unknown for the majority of the harvest to be negative. When a planet moves strongly towards the negative, there is almost no opportunity for harvestable positive polarization. How about that? We get into numbers of planetary harvests. I love the precision of Ra, and I just noticed this, I have to confess. I'm not sure why they even have to add this, but this is just them being so perfect and precise. Don's question is, how common in the whole universe is a mixed harvest for a planet of both positively and negatively oriented mind-body-spirit complexes? I mean, it was very precise, Don, right? Like, the harvest that yields positive and negative oriented mind-body-spirit complexes, how common is it? And Ra says that among planetary harvests which yield a harvest of mind-body-spirit complexes, and then he goes into the numbers, I think this is because second density is also a harvest, but it doesn't harvest mind-body-spirit complexes. It harvests mind-body complexes which are now endowed by the spirit. So to me, that's maybe why they said that among planetary harvests which yield a harvest of mind-body-spirit complexes. Like, talking about specifically those, making implicitly that there are two different types of harvests or many different types of harvests. Maybe there is a harvest which doesn't yield in 7 density as the mind-body-spirit complex dissolves. So that graduation into 7 density is no longer a mind-body-spirit complex. Might be a mind-body-spirit complex totality beingness. I don't know. I'm just ranting at this point. I like to get into this stuff. I feel that sometimes there is a little bit of knowledge there, so Don't blame me, please. Okay, let's get to harvest then. Approximately 10% of all, let's say third density, right? Because that's where you get positive and negative. That's what we're talking about here. Let's be very precise, Ra, okay? We're talking about third density. Should have said that from the beginning. All right, so third density is the only one that actually yields positive and negatives. Because as I recorded recently in a video that is actually still in the board here, the choice. What is the choice? Go watch that video. It's very interesting. So approximately 10% choose the negative side, completely negative. Approximately 60% are positive. So more than half of the universe goes through the process of saying, hey, we're all one, let's have fun. And then approximately 30%, or a third almost, are mixed, just like this planet. In the event of a mixed harvest, like this planet is, it's almost unknown for the majority of the harvest to be negative. I actually promised this was going to be at the end of the video. I think there is more to say about why we're polarizing towards the positive, but here you can see the first hint, or major hint, where Ross says that 30% are mixed, with nearly all harvests being positive. That is our planet. So the planet cannot polarize negatively. And that's what Ross says at the end. When a planet moves strongly towards the negative, there is almost no opportunity for harvestable positive polarization. This is not the case here on planet Earth. Believe it or not, despite what the news may tell you. And with the news, I also mean those Instagram accounts that are always showing all kinds of different things of the planet going. I don't think. Is there? I don't think there is. I just made that up. I know there is also in social media all kinds of disinformation, especially when it's gonna get around this. 2024. Actually, speaking of 2024, for financial collapse, 2024 is going to be another interesting year because of, election. We may get some other health issue, which seems to happen on every election year. Maybe the news. Maybe we get news about it. Not sure if it actually happens. But I see I'm getting my hands dirty here. So when a planet moves strongly towards the negative, there's almost no opportunity for harvestable positive polarization. That is not the case here. Now, Don is interested in this and says, in question 14, can you tell me why there is almost no opportunity in that case? Ross says, the ability to polarize positively requires a certain degree of self-determination. So, really quick here, if you're in a negative polarized planet, trust me, there won't be any way for you to have self-determination. You won't be able to make a choice. And this is what you can see the mock-up that they did here on planet Earth. The elite, thinking that they could actually polarize this planet to the negative, they decided to do this control. We have, it's still, the agenda is still in process, because guess what? It provides catalysts for polarization, both positive and negative. And so, trust me, negatives are still here trying to polarize. That is the way in which we balance our planet. And the positive ones are those who are still dormant and will eventually wake up. Whether that be in death or in during incarnation. But they will wake up. It's inevitable. And so, yeah, this was the intention, to polarize the planet negatively by having everybody being controlled via a chip in your brain, which again, thank you Elon Musk for designing it. I have nothing against Musk. I just think that it's funny that now they're designing it. And yeah, by just social control, you won't be able to make decisions on your own. And you can even see this now. 2020 was a great year to show how people are still susceptible to manipulation, to influence. And if Simon says, then people follow, right? And so we're still playing that game of Simon says. and people follow, people play the game. So it'll take time. It's fine. You know, we have time. I actually enjoy a lot this chaotic state of the world, because that means that there is a lot of service to be provided and much more to be learned, not for individual purposes, but for the collective that we are. So much more to learn. Planet Earth, to me, is going to become a vast amount of knowledge and resources for the rest of the universe. As an example, we're making a huge example for polarization here. But that's my fantasy worldview that I like to share with you. Question 15, Don says, then, as the final days of the cycle transpire, if the harvest were to occur now, today, it would have a certain number harvested positively and negatively, and a certain number of repeaters. I am going to assume that because of the catalyst which will be experienced between now and the actual harvesting time, these numbers of harvestable entities will increase. Don continues and says, generally speaking, not particularly with respect to this planet, but with respect to general experience, shall we say, in harvesting, how big an increase in harvestable entities can you logically assume will occur because of the catalyst that occurs in the final period such as this one? Or am I making a mistake in assuming that other planets have added catalysts at the end of a harvesting period when they have a mixed harvest? I think the question is quite convoluted for me to summarize. Let's reread Don's. Go back here. I'm going to assume that because of the catalyst which will be experienced between now and the actual harvesting time, these numbers of harvestable entities will increase. Yes, okay. So his assumption is that we're going to increase the amount of harvestable entities because the added catalyst that is going on the planet. Certain number of harvested possibly negative. Sure, okay. That's the initial breakup of repeaters, positive and negatives. That's just how harvest is going to happen. And okay, so the added catalyst at the end. Let's see what Ross says, and they'll be able to actually untangle this. Ross says, in the event of mixed harvest, there is nearly always disharmony and therefore added catalyst in the form of your so-called earth changes. In this assumption, you are correct. It is the Confederation's desire to serve those who may, indeed, seek more intensely because of this added catalyst. We do not choose to attempt to project the success of added numbers to the harvest, for this would not be appropriate. We are servants. We are called. We shall serve with all our strength. To count the numbers is without virtue. I love that last part because they repeat once again that, see, to count the numbers is without virtue. That is such a Taoistic view. To count the numbers is without virtue. True virtue. Virtuous man. Who is the virtuous man? Okay, so in the event of mixed harvest, there's always disharmony. So we always add catalyst at the end of a mixed harvest because there is a tug of war between positives and negatives. There are some pulling to the negative. And you see, it's only a handful of negatives, but they exert such a huge influence and manipulation in their system. You see, one of my biggest issues when working with people, or I shouldn't say issues, but hurdles in working with people, and I make it a point because of the type of teaching that I do, which is completely non-dual, is to divorce them from the association that we are a separate being. It is so ingrained in our mentality that we are a product of evolution from animals and that we are here to survive and hopefully survive the graduation of third density. Like, we're bringing from this mentality our knowledge and gnosis about divinity. You have to divorce yourself from that. You cannot bring separation into unity. it doesn't match. You cannot bring numbers to infinity. They dissolve. So the biggest thing is always to add that. And the reason why we have this ingrained mentality is because the system, which has developed over thousands of years, which is the negative philosophy of control and societal domination and power over others and all of this, has created a culture that feels that is separate. Materialist science has had a very strong pull from negatives. So the negatives will always pull, and it's just a few of them, like I said, that maintain this system or that actually benefit from this system and keep it by making the decisions of manipulation of others. It is the vast majority, of course, of people that sustain it and maintain it because they buy into the idea of money being a medium of exchange and nothing else but the power of money. And we have a dirty association with that word. We have all kinds of association with the negative system. And so, added catalyst is just necessary at the end. It's the result of that last friction between the negatives and the positives. The positives creating the world that they want, and the negatives resisting to it. For the first time, they are resisting. So, like I said in the previous video, I think this will just shrink over time. This system will shrink to the point where there is no battle against it, no true battle. All battles actually strengthen it. I think there's just, an ignorance or ignoring of the system to the point that it just loses its power, and at the end you'll have a tiny little man screaming at you to do something, and you just say, sorry little buddy, you can stay with your ambition and greed. We're fine doing what we do with our new technology and everything else, whatever we do creating humanity's future. So yeah, there's no, I don't know if that answered Don's question completely. Do I want to add something else? Soon will occur because of this catalyst, not particularly with respect to this planet, but with respect to general experience in harvesting. How big an increase in harvestable entities? Yeah, okay, so Ra definitely answers by saying, we don't know the numbers. We don't know if this is going to increase or decrease. This is just going to create the environment for whatever it is to happen. And so we go to question 16, where Don says, now the added catalyst at the end of the cycle is a function specifically of the orientation of the consciousness that inhabits the planet. The consciousness has provided the catalyst for itself in orienting its thinking in the way it has oriented, thus acting upon itself the same as catalysts of bodily pain and disease act upon the single mind-body-spirit complex. I made this analogy once before, but reiterate it at this time to clarify my own thinking in seeing the planetary entity as somewhat of a single entity made up of billions of mind-body-spirit complexes. Is my viewpoint correct? Ra says, you are quite correct. I love this question, as this is how I've been seeing the planet for quite some time, actually. Before even entering the raw material, I started seeing people as little parts of, this is when I was doing my first research in consciousness, aside from materialist science, and into this the collective consciousness. How is it that there is a collective consciousness, that we're all deriving our essence from it, part of our essence, huge part of it, collective subconscious too. So Don summarizes this pretty well by saying that the added catalyst is a function of the orientation of this planetary consciousness, basically. It's just one mind. Our planet has just one mind, but it has a conflict. It has cognitive dissonance. And so we need to resolve this. The consciousness has provided a catalyst for itself, just like we would provide catalysts for our mind and body in our life. And so just like you see in your life that you're facing catalysts of whatever kind it may be, the planet as a whole, as one mind, is providing catalyst to itself. And it does so with us humans, because we humans are like the neurons of the consciousness that manifest the physical reality. You see, just like the neurons are physical manifestations of, in the brain, of consciousness, or the processes of consciousness, we humans are the same. And it's all one brain, that's the planet. There's only one consciousness, that's the mind of the planet. And that's that consciousness of the planet is reorienting itself. And so that's the analogy, and Ra says that Don is quite correct. So question 17, Don says, then we deal with an entity that has not yet formed a social memory but is yet an entity, just as one of us can be called a single entity. Can we continue this observation of the, shall I say, conglomerate entity through the galactic entity, or shall I say, small planetary system type of entity? Let me try to phrase it this way. Could I look at a single sun in its planetary system as an entity, and then look at a major galaxy with its billions of stars as an entity? Can I continue this extrapolation in this way? And I would say, yes, you can. But Ra says, you can, but not within the framework of third density spacetime. Let us attempt to speak upon this interesting subject. In your spacetime, you and your peoples are the parents of that which is in the womb. The Earth, as you call it, is ready to be born, and the delivery is not going smoothly. When this entity has become born, it will be instinct with the social memory complex of its parents, which have become fourth density positive. In this density, there is a broader view. Nice pause here. The extrapolation of Don, it's quite correct in my view. Ra is simply discerning between the fact that we as humans and the planet, we cannot do it from the framework of third density when we see us as sort of still separate from the planet. We haven't seen the connection. It's almost like the neurons in the brain haven't seen the connection. Yet we, from another dimension, studying the brain, can see, oh yeah, look at all the neurons, firing at the same time when there is this reaction and when there is this experience and this stimuli and so on. So we see the clicks of neuron always flashing together. And somebody who is meditating, oh, look at the harmony in the brain. Somebody who is stressed, oh, look at this harmony in the brain. And the neurons are just there, flashing whatever it is, with neurosis, blah! They don't know what's happening. It's just like, oh, it's something wrong with me. It's not anything wrong with you. Everything's fine. You're just harmonizing yourself. This planetary brain is harmonizing itself. So that's, I believe, the discernment that Ra is bringing up here. And you see how excited they are to talk about this, because they say, let us attempt to speak upon this interesting subject. In your space-time, your peoples are the parents of that which is in the womb. What that means is that, yes, we as the neurons are the ones channeling, of course. I mean, my analogy is really short here, but we are channeling the love and light of the one creator, right? So what do? We bring it to fourth density, and we say, all the light and love that is being channeled through this mind-body-spirit complex, along with all my fellow humans, is going to be directed towards the seeking of the one, right? And so that makes the harmony of the planet to become, as a shift over time, but as an inevitable shift, a whole social memory complex. And that is the point. When this entity has become born, it will be instinct with the social memory complex of its parents. Just like the body seems to be born out of the brain. Because the brain is the one that senses and says, okay, oh, I see my hand, I can touch my hand, I can taste my hand, I can hear my hand. So the brain is actually what's doing all of this. It's perceiving. You see, consciousness uses the brain to see itself as a separate being in this illusion. So Eventually, the planet will see itself through the social memory complex as one being. Or we can say that us, as a social memory complex, will see the planet as the neuron will see the whole brain. So we are the parents in this way. I would say that we as parents in third density become merged with the planet. And it's not like we are going to be the parents of the planet, or we're going to babysit the planet for a while. We will merge with the planet. And Ra quite correctly says, in this density there is a broader view. What is that broader view? Ra says, you may begin to see your relationship to the logos or sun with which you are most intimately associated. This is not the relationship of parent to child, but of creator, that is logos, to creator. That's much more appropriate. That is the mind-body-spirit complex as logos. When this realization occurs, you may then widen the field of eyeshot, if you will, infinitely, recognizing parts of the logos throughout the one infinite creation and filling with the roots of mind informing the intuition, the parents aiding their planets in evolution in reaches vast and unknown in the creation. Wow. For this process occurs many, many times in the evolution of the creation as a whole. Whew. Just those two words there, vast and unknown. Vast, unknown. Just reflect on that. So yes, you may begin to see your relationship. This is in 4 density. Once we are social memory complex, then we'll begin to see the relationship to the logos or sun, we as a planet to the sun. This is a different view of the sun and the logos, of course, with which you are most intimately associated. And this is not a relationship between parent and child, but of creator to creator, because we see each other as mirrors, that being the sun and the social memory complex. Then we can, once we see this, once we have this realization and you see yourself as one with the logos, then you can extend that to every other logos and you can begin to see the holographic nature of the universe, basically. That's just beautiful. This one last paragraph is just tremendous. But I want to finish this session today because we only have a couple of questions. And Don, I think, is going to ask a question here. Yeah, I think, let's read this. Don says in question 18, the wanderer goes through the forgetting process. You mentioned that those who have both third and fourth density bodies activated now do not have the forgetting that the wanderer has. I was just wondering if, say, a 6th density wanderer were here with a 3rd density body activated, would he have gone through a forgetting that was in sections, shall I say, with a forgetting of 4th, 5th, and 6th densities? And if he were to have his 4th density body activated, he would have a partial additional memory, and then another partial if his 5th were activated, and then full memory if he had the 6th activated. Does this make any sense? Ross simply says no. No, doesn't make sense. Don seems to pick up, and that's why I love the re-listen version. And the raw contact just says that Don chuckles there, as you can hear in the tape. Does this make any sense? No. Your penetrating of the forgetting in section doesn't make sense. Alright, so Don says, the forgetting process was puzzling me because you said that the 4th density activated people who were here who had been harvestable did not have the same forgetting problem. Could you tell me why the wanderer loses his memory? And I would add here in brackets then, why the wanderer loses his memory and why the dual activated body doesn't. This is a really important answer. Ra says, the reason is twofold. First, the genetic properties of the connection between the mind-body-spirit complex and the cellular structure of the body is different for 3rd density than for 3rd, 4th density, or dual activated bodies. Secondly, the free will of third density entities needs be preserved. Thus, wanderers volunteer for third density genetic or DNA connections to the mind-body-spirit complex. Okay, so Jesus, it's dark here. Let's bring some light to my face. There, better. So, two types of people here. There's a dual activated body, which I have discussed ad nauseam already in the past session. And there is the wanderer. The wanderer comes from 4th, 5th, and 6th densities. The dual activated body comes from 3rd density graduator already. And instead of going to their planet, they come back. They don't come back. They come to planet Earth, but they come back as 3rd density mind-body-spirit complex. However, they have their 4th density body activated. That's why they're called dual activated bodies. So the difference between them and 3rd density is the following. First, the genetic properties of the dual activated body and the 3rd density are different. The cellular structure of the body is different. That's quite interesting. Secondly, the free will of 3rd density entities, or the reason why, because the question is, why do wanderers have a forgetting and dual activated bodies don't? That's not precisely true, as we will find out. There is a very subtle difference that it's going to blow your mind, I'm sure, because it did mine. But first, let us establish that dual activated bodies have a genetic configuration in the cellular structure that is different from the third density. And so the second reason why wanderers forget is because they volunteer as pure 3rd density entities. That's because the free will of 3rd density entities here needs to be preserved. And we'll see why. Ra continues and says, the forgetting process can be penetrated to the extent of the wanderer remembering what it is and why it is upon the planetary sphere. However, it would be an infringement if wanderers penetrated the forgetting so far as to activate the more dense bodies and thus be able to live, shall we say, in a godlike manner. This would not be proper for those who have chosen to serve. Let me pause here because this is so I don't even have the right word for this. It's awesome. Okay, I'll just settle for awesome. So the forgetting process can be penetrated, for the wanderer to remember who he is and what are you doing here. Okay, so it's just like, oh, I see. I can understand why I'm here. But it would be a huge infringement if a wanderer could activate 5th and 6th density properties. Imagine that, like a human being suddenly just wakes up and says, oh, I'm going to, doesn't even says that. It just says like, oh, I'm able to travel with thought and I'll just, enter different places and people will see me as just a god, manipulating matter and constructing things out of thoughts. And this is what would happen if a wanderer was able to activate the more dense bodies of dense consciousness. It means consciously dense bodies. Imagine that, just like living in a godlike manner. I think that's fantastic. I know a lot of people would love to do that, but that would be an infringement on free will. That would destroy so much the planet, planet's consciousness. I mean, this would not be proper for those who have chosen to serve. Yeah, you came here to serve, not to become a god. So you cannot activate that. But why? Why do these dual activated body fellows are able to do it? Let's see. Ra says the new 4th density entities which are becoming able to demonstrate various newer abilities are doing so as a result of the present experience, not as a result of memory. There are always a few exceptions, and we ask your forgiveness for constant barrage of overgeneralizations. so much perspective. This is what it brings, so much perspective. You see, the dual activated bodies are not special. I mean, they are special from the point of view of a third density human who is not even, they're impressive. That's, to say the least, they are impressive for sure. But they're not special, meaning that, we can even say they're special humans too. So this is what's happening. Let's put it this way. You see, they're able to do what they do because we are in fourth density. Being in fourth density and having an activated dual body allows you to basically navigate both third density and fourth density. See why they're so excited to be here? Because they are able to do this. So they have various abilities. And we have explored so many of the metaphysical ones, the psychic ones, which Don was always interested in. But these new ones are amazing for the following. You see, not long ago, I started to see, I don't know if you're familiar with this, parkour, Parkour, I think it's spelled, parkour. This is mostly known in video games, but people are doing this in real life. They do what I consider to be godlike maneuvers. Talking about the movement of their bodies, jumping and falling from 2-3 floor heights in ways that just seem miraculous to me. I don't think even Jesus could do this back then. Seriously, that seems like a genetic cellular structure of these kids, or these guys, because some of them may be my age for all that I know. They have this specific. Now, not all dual activated bodies exhibit that, just like they don't exhibit psychic powers. But I believe these are things that are new to us, and we're seeing and we're saying simply, well, that's just, the result of healthy habits and all our beautiful culture, because yes, we have such a technologically advanced culture. No, we don't. We have a materialist, technological, advanced culture. That is for sure. And a good one at that, I must admit. But no, we have, I think, this is just my personal opinion, I think these guys who do this are dual activated bodies. And I'm specifically talking about physical prowess. There are psychic prowess that are all over the place now, and most of you have these abilities too, as a function of penetrating the forgetting, and also a lot of you are dual activated bodies as well. So there's a lot to talk about this. So much we can talk about this, but at least this gives us the first. We already talked about how there is us being a mixed harvest points out that we're in a positive direction, and at this point that it would be very difficult for anybody to polarize positively if we were negative, and plus this, if we were a negative planet. So we're not, and a lot of people are polarizing positively. We have self-determination, as Ra said. We still have that, believe it or not. And then saying this about that we are in fourth density, the new fourth density entities which are becoming able to demonstrate various newer abilities, I say psychic and physically, are doing so as a result of the present experience. What's the present experience? Fourth density, not as a result of memory. So, I'm way past the hour. Who cares? Question 20, Don says, I don't know if this question is related to what I'm trying to get at or not, but I'll ask it and see. You mentioned in speaking of the pyramids that the resonating chamber was used so that the adept could meet the self. Would you explain what you meant by that? Some of you pyramid lovers are getting excited now. I just know it. Ra says, one meets the self in the center, or deeps of the being. The so-called resonating chamber may be likened unto the symbology of the burial and resurrection of the body, wherein the entity dies to self, and through this confrontation of apparent loss and realization of essential gain, is transmuted into a new and risen being. Yeah, let me cover this and then we'll get to, I think we have 2 more questions from Don. We'll see. So, how does the resonating chamber works for the adepts? Well, what's the purpose of it? Initiation, right? Is that what it is? I forget if the resonating chamber, that's the one below the Queen's chamber. So, it must be preparation for initiation. So, what do you mean by could meet the self? You mentioned, of course, yes. You mentioned in speaking of the pyramids that the resonating chamber was used so that the adept could meet the self. Well, us non-dualistic mystics love the self. So what is it that we meet the self? Who is the self? Can you explain that oneself? I certainly can, and I will. And so let me do it in Ra's words. Because what's happening is that you go to the resonating chamber back then, and Ra's going to explain this better in the next question, but you're going to meet the self by... Yeah, I should probably read the next question. Let me see what I can add here that will serve the next question. One meets the self in the center or deeps of being. Yes. You have to question who you are first, so you can meet the self. Because it's not on the outside, but in the center or deeps of your being that you're going to find the self. Okay, so you have to ask yourself first, who am I? That's the question. Who am I? And so the so-called resonating chamber may be likened to the symbology of the burial and resurrection. There is death here, and I'll show you how there is death in this realization, or in this process, which is, hey, by the way, I teach this, if you didn't know. Stay to the end of this video or podcast, depending on where you're listening, so I can give you more details about this. Through this confrontation of apparent loss and realization of essential gain, yes, this is the process of death and resurrection. So this is what transmutes the self into a new risen being. But let's go to Don's question here on 21, where he says, could I make the analogy of, in the apparent death, loosen the desires that are the illusory, common desires of third density, and gain the desires of total service to others? This is great. And Ra says, you are perceptive. This was the purpose and intent of this chamber, as well as forming a necessary portion of the King's Chamber position's effectiveness. Yes, it's just so perfect. As well as forming the necessary portion of the King's Chamber. I wonder if, is the resonating chamber the Queen's? I don't think so. I forget. In any case, the purpose is this. And I'm going to get ahead because the last question... No, you know what? I'm not going to get ahead. Let's go to the last question of pyramids here. The last question of this session as well. Don says, question 22. Can you tell me what this chamber did to the entity to create this awareness in him or her? Ra says, this chamber worked upon the mind and the body. The mind was affected by sensory deprivation and the archetypical reactions to being buried alive with no possibility of extricating the self. The body was affected both by the mind configuration and by the electrical and piezoelectrical properties of the materials which were used in the construction of the resonating chamber. This will be the last full query of this working. May we ask if there are any brief queries at this time? And then just Don asks about Carla, the instrument, and if they could do something to improve the contact. And Ra simply says, we feel that the instrument is well supported and that all is well. We caution each regarding this instrument distortion towards pain, for it dislikes sharing these expressions, but as support group, this instrument subconsciously accepts each entity's aid. All is in alignment. You are conscientious. We thank you for this. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, rejoicing in the love and delight of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, glorifying in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator, Adonai. So that was the last question, last answer. And yeah, Carla, as many of us, this is probably a small lesson here. We don't like sharing sometimes that we have discomfort towards pain or something, but sometimes it's good to just share it and say, you know what, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. It's just, when you find love from somebody else just caring for you, that's healing right there to some degree. So share it, always share it. Okay, so let's talk about the initiation. What's happening? The resonating chamber is creating sensory deprivation, as Ross said, for the mind and the body. I'm not sure what the mechanism was. Other more brilliant minds can decode this. I don't know. But the mechanism was to deprive the body from sensory input, and the mind then going through this archetypical reactions of being buried alive, knowing that you're alive, but not feeling alive. Sensation of being alive, being moving or listening to things, just being around a living world, and that was completely excluded from this chamber. So what does this cause? This is a very, I would even call it primitive way of awakening the self, showing the self for the first time to the entity. Obviously, this is why Ra says that we don't need pyramids anymore. We can do this on our own. We have become our own pyramids. And the way this works is that once you feel that you're dead, alive, you will inevitably have one direction in which to bring your attention to. And that is the fact that you are still alive, even though you feel dead. How crazy is that? Oh, maybe, just maybe, in this realization, you say, what I thought death was is nothing more than the ceasing of the vibrations of my mind and my body. But I remain. I die as a body and a mind, but I remain. The I never dies. And I don't mean the I as the ocular organ, but the I, the self, never dies. There is always the I. And so you call yourself I, and I call myself I. How can I die if you are alive? So in this realization is where you direct your attention to pure consciousness, and you say, oh, I am this. Of course, like I said, this is pretty brutal and forcefully but it's a method, I guess. And once you die and you come back, this is the resurrection. As Ross said in a couple of answers before, when they said that they say the symbology of the burial and resurrection of the body, wherein the entity dies to self, right? Dies to self, to the self that it believed it was, and through this confrontation of apparent loss. What is the apparent loss? The ceasing of the activity of the mind and the body. So the confrontation between the apparent loss and the realization of essential gain. That essential gain is the realization that you're pure consciousness. That is transmuted into a new and risen being. That is resurrection. By the way, that's what Jesus meant, and it has been colored in so many ways. But the mystic Jesus, for those who put any stocks into Jesus being a mystic and not a martyr, although his story can be seen as a martyr as well, but we have overly emphasized that and pushed aside the mystical Jesus. Never mind mystical Jesus. That's just some stuff that people made up. Nagamari text, hunt them all down. Well, this was the Gnostic Gospels that were hunted all down, and we discovered them in Nagamari just 80 years ago almost. So all of this information in the end shows us the same thing. You are pure consciousness. And this is is what I meant to refer that I teach. There is one way in which you can do this yourself. You don't need a pyramid. You don't need psychedelics. You don't need initiation. I mean, you could do all of these things, and of course, no matter what path you can take yoga, all the different yogas, and practice for many years, and you will reach this realization. But all paths lead to the same goal. This goal is the realization of the self. In fact, realization of oneness comes out of the realization of the self. First, you must know yourself. Know thyself, right? This has been the theme for decades, for thousands of years, not decades, thousands of years. And in all our teachings, we have that. So I teach something that is called the direct path, because it was my way of liberation, my final valve of liberation after all these years of research and studying and finding out what the law of one meant and non-duality and all of this. At this point, I'm actually talking to you. Yes, I'm talking to you. If you're interested and my material actually works for you, I'm genuinely asking you to book something with me. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. I just want to talk to you and see where you are at and how can I be of service in that particular way. If I can be of service, which I'm pretty sure I can, because you resonate with my material. So if you're interested, here on YouTube, if you're listening in the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, or whatever other platform you use, you have to go to YouTube to check the link in the description so you can get in touch with me. So make an appointment. We'll see each other in Zoom. Simple as that. Two human beings talking to each other. It's free. You're not paying for anything. I need to know this, and I don't know how long I'll be doing this because I'm just talking to a lot of people now, and I want to continue to do this for a period of time. So links to that again in the description. The last thing I will say is that yes, you can go straight into the heart of things. You can take the long path as well. Most people are taking that. That is what we have been taught over years, but I have a different approach, and I am not alone on this. I have the privilege of having, as I call him, my teacher, Rupert Spira. Go look him up. His material is fantastic. Don't take my word for it. Go check Rupert Spira. You can even find it in my channel. I have him anchored to my favorite channels or something like that. You have to look it up. Rupert Spira. So, with that being said, come to the end of this video, come to the end of this session. Conclusions. I don't know where to begin. We talk so much. I talk so much. An hour and a half into it. But it was so powerful. This last part, it was so powerful. Okay, so the value of prophecies. First thing, value prophecy for the content of it. Period. Not about the specific period in which it's supposed to happen. This is why I love how Ra said, between 100 and 700 years, this may happen. We don't like specific dates, is what Ra is saying there. And that's prophecy. Then we have wanderers. Wanderers have inherently in them the ability to lighten the planet by just being here. If they forget or they penetrate the forgetting, the veil of forgetting, then they can bring forth that which they are. And so that which they are is dependent on their origin and their specific quality, what they have to bring, your own profession, what you love doing. That's how you know. You don't have to go study years to find out, oh, I finally found my passion. No, you don't. You don't find your passion. You finally admit it because you love doing it. Whether that be drawing, and you say, well, my parents told me that drawing was not going to give me any money. No, but it's going to make you happy. And that's all we need you to be, happy. Or whether that be playing music or whatever it is. Doesn't have to be artistic even. Opening a grocery store like we talk about here. Serving in, bringing genuine food, to people's, being a farmer. Whatever it is. Just anything, whatever your heart loves. Go with that. That's what a wanderer should do. And what else we talked about? Harvest. Harvest simply tells us that we are at the point in which we're positively polarizing. And thankfully, we are at the cusp of negative polarization. This planet will not get more negative than it is right now, which means, okay, it means a relief for a lot of people who says, oh my God, I have to, now I feel relieved that the planet's not going to go to, it's not going to go down the tubes. Yes, I'm relieved for that, but also for the seeker who wants to be of service. This is the highest point of being of service to others, and you're here to do that. Finally, initiation, like I said, is about meeting the self, depriving yourself from everything. And like I said, I am offering this for some time. I don't know for how long. I have a course as well. Go check it out if it's something that you like. If you like learning indirectly, I have that course available as well. I'll leave that in the descriptions as well. And it's a very affordable course because it's the core of my teaching, and I want everybody to learn this, to know this. So yeah, meeting the self is just about realizing that you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're consciousness, you're pure consciousness, and I guide you through that. After that, you can go out in the world, the same world, and I'll finish up with my favorite Zen saying, before knowing anything about Zen, mountains were mountains, rivers were rivers. After knowing a little bit about Zen, mountains were no longer mountains, rivers were no longer rivers. But after finally learning Zen and understanding it, mountains were again mountains and rivers were again rivers. Because that's what happens. Once you meet your pure consciousness, you come back to the world and everything looks the same, but your perspective, your vantage point changes. And that's what I like to do with people. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to me for an hour and a half, whether you listen to this in one session, 2, 3, 10, however many different moments you listen to this. I'm grateful. I'm full of joy because I can share this with you, not only the law of one, but my non-dual teachings and my way of liberation of the mind, and reuniting with your true self, your heart. Speaking of heart, you know I love you, I appreciate you. Thank you for all the comments you leave me. Thank you for joining the Facebook group, which actually has been getting some people. I would be excited to see more people, so if you want to join that, I haven't promote that in a while, but you can find it, Gaia Awakens, in Facebook. That's all I have to say. I'll see you in session 66. Be well, stay happy, and remember to smile for somebody today. I'll see you then.